right now that you're building the team, I mean, there's a lot of debate about like pooled SE model versus partner SE model, and I wrote a blog for Vivin about that, which I got a lot of pushback. Like I wanted partnered, I wanted one-to-one, and it's like, oh no, it should be pooled. What are your thoughts around which is better?
Yeah, it depends, right? It depends on the type of company, the stage of the company, the this and that. So I'll tell you where I am right now, and I'll share my experience. But so in fact, before I tell you where we are now at Ironclad, let me go back to my beginning SE days when I was a brand new SE at Salesforce and we had a pooled model. Nobody wanted to work with the new SE. Like everybody wanted to work with the KeyCast SE that has been there 6 months before. Like we didn't have
the veteran.
The veteran been there 6 months, right? So you know, it was challenging, but it was also like it was a way for a lot of SEs to like build their brand and make sure that, you know, people wanted to work for them. It allowed space for so a lot of hungry SEs to make their name. But we shortly after moved to an assigned model and haven't looked back. And you know, for somebody who's coming into the workforce as a new SE, like that was just amazing, because now I had a team that I was assigned to, that I can build my relationship with. I can control my calendar a little more. I have a, you know, set of accounts or type of accounts, industry, whatever, you know, segment. I just had a lot of consistency, and for the amount of context switching that SEs do on a daily basis from account to account, I just didn't need more context switching in my day to go from an AE to AE. So you know, I feel like the assigned model has so many pros, quite honestly. There's some cons that I'm happy to share, but I think it needs to be the right time for a company to introduce the assigned model, right? If you have 2 SEs and you're just starting, you're not, you know, that doesn't make sense.
And in that case, you're assigned, the 2 SEs are assigned to all the salespeople.
There you go. Yes, yes. So like it really and then there is a combination. There's some places where you'll see the generalists be assigned, but then the specialists are pooled, right? So it's always about what's the right balance for the company. But let me now share. So that was kind of my experience when I was starting as an SC, and the experience joining Ironclad. They had a pooled model, and I think it works well for AEs. I think it's really good for AEs because they can always find an SE to drop on the calendar, right? They don't have to shuffle calendars and try to make sure their SE can make it, and then like the manager doesn't have to make sure there's coverage for that person if they're if they're away. So there are some of the cons of the aligned model, right? But the pros in my experience just outweigh the cons in multiples. And so as soon as we became a team of 10, and as soon as we had we had 10 different AE teams with their managers, and we could do a manager to SC alignment. We introduced it at Ironclad, and it has worked really well. I think for the SC specifically, it works a lot better. Might be a little more challenging for the AE in terms of scheduling, but for the SC and for their performance and for their ability to be a trusted advisor, it is just night and day. I would say when you're a pooled resource, you're a resource, and then when you're an aligned SC, you're just more empowered to become a partner.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? Like, what specifically allows the SE become more of a partner in a assigned model versus?
Yeah, so you're gonna work that, you're gonna work that account. You're gonna work that account. 3 demos, 5 demos, 6 discoveries, whatever, depends on where you are. If you're in small business, you're gonna do as many calls as needed. If you're an enterprise, you're gonna work that account maybe for a year or 2. And so in a pooled model, I feel like you take the next available SC for the next call, and you gotta you're gonna try to keep that same SC for the follow-up calls, right? But if you have the option of choosing another call, often AEs just choose the calendar rather than the relationship. They're like, well, I don't have that person, but customer said they can only do it on this time, so I'm going to take this other SE, right? So it just makes it a little harder to be consistent with an account. And when you're not consistent with an account, it's a lot harder for an SC to have a point of view on how to make that account successful. And I think the best SCs build up a point of view in how certain prospects should leverage their technology to solve problems, achieve goals, and be successful. So, I'm kind of speaking from the top of my head here, but I think that's one of the big, I think that's one of the big reasons why that aligned model really works, is because it allows for consistency and developing a point of view.
So I'm just gonna restate what you just said in my words to make sure I understood you correctly.
Yeah.
So SEs in a partnered model, they get the chance to actually own the technical relationship with the customers throughout the life cycle, which gives them better insight towards, hey, this person said this thing one day, so I'm going to use it in a demo, which gets lost in translation if there was a pooled model, and it's in the notes. So okay. No.
Yeah. I mean, you build a relationship with the AE, you build a relationship with the prospect, with the customer, and you develop an idea, a point of view of what that customer should do, which quite often is really necessary. The prospect so often doesn't know what they need and what they like. They're coming to you for advice. You are the expert in this area. You built the product, right? So tell me, what should I do? And I think the best SCs have a strong point of view on those questions. Yep. And quite frankly, it's really difficult to build if you're running from writing an RFP to a discovery call to a demo that the AE did discovery for. It's just a really, really difficult thing to do.
The one thing I would say is bad about the partner model is if an SE gets stuck with not necessarily a bad AE, but an AE that they do not click with, right?
Right.
And becomes a hard relationship. Like I've worked with SEs that were bullied by account managers. The account managers were good and they were hitting quota, which meant they're good for the company.
Yeah.
It was just not a good fit with the
and the other con would be just territory, right? What if you get stuck with a territory that's not performing, no matter how big how much you try? Like that's, there's definitely some cons. But I think that the territory questions, such like if you ask an AE leader, they'll say like, that's an excuse. Like that's never the reason. Every territory is a good territory, which, I agree with. You can do a lot to influence that, but like an AE can do a lot more to influence the territory, and SC on the other hand, like a little less control over that. So so I don't know. It's whether the partnership with the AE or the territory you're working, like there's definitely some cons, but this is where good leadership comes in play, and make sure to take input, pair people right, change alignments, right? Make people happy in their jobs. Like that should be the SE leader #1 priority.
Yeah,